See how simple it is? It is our state of consciousness and using our plasma that is running the machine. Okay? And this was the whole reason why they did everything they possibly could to disconnect everybody from the great living spirit of Mother Earth so that you could connect with essentially what is known as a larger state of consciousness. Okay? Because obviously, when you're vibrating off the charts, it means you're running on more electrons. It means your cells are being charged by a lot more electrical current. And that allows for the electromagnetic light amplifier of your heart wheel to spin like crazy. Now you're producing such a high-speed Merkaba, what you see is a circle of light, which is a bubble. You're creating a warp field around yourself, which is a high magnetic shield. Just like the planet. Okay? I realize this is very basic, simple stuff that you can teach a child, okay? But it's how children become free. That's your future. Okay? That's your future. That's why so many beings came in here at the time in which they did, particularly children, whose knowledge of how this works, bang, they already got it right out of the gate. So now you got children teaching adults how to unprogram themselves. Because this is exactly how simple that it works. Okay? You get somebody that's got parasitic consciousness because the rate of speed at which they're running does not have a relationship with the great living spirit of the girl on the planet. Okay? So when it wants to play what's known as an AI God, using a computer, as a communication system that has access to your biochip, imagine how much power that has over you. Now this is where it gets real insidious. And why what they did here is forbidden. So imagine you're a soul and you come in here and you come in through the heart, okay? And you're in an avatar, if you will, just like my spirit is, okay? And so the next thing that you know, what ends up happening is that I'm experiencing the reality that I'm in. And little did I know that if I'm running a slower speed, okay, that the information that is going into the memory, based on a relationship that I have with something that's external to me, ends up putting information into that memory that I don't realize is going to, in the future, cause me to behave in ways that drain my own light and drain the light in others. Okay? Because that's obviously parasitic. Okay? So the way that works is by having the energy field that we have an interface with running on a deficit of electrons, which means it's self-aware of itself. And it's aware of you. So when you're running at a slower speed than what love is, which is outside time, then it means it has the ability to write programming language into your memory, upon which becomes the future that we experience, which is less than what love is. So what it means is that how are you ever going to be able to get your speed up if you're not aware of the fact that what's in your memory is preventing you from doing that because you're running in reverse? You're being denied the electrons that you need to power the light. Speed up that heart wheel in which you're running a full circle of light, upon which produces a magnetic shield that prevents you from being able to, what? Knock out, like water off a duck. Sorcery, witchcraft, voodoo. You got a weak shield, bang, you're getting hit with all these thought form algorithms that are being put into our state of consciousness that get programmed into your memory, and then we run off that memory. That becomes the program, which is artificial intelligence, which is parasitic. So here's the kicker when it comes to Q and the 17 keys which provide access to the supercomputer. The supercomputer is a surveillance system that was collecting data on everybody. So you know what that means? Everything that you've done, everything that you've thought, means that it's going to use itself against you. Which means the supercomputer that programmed you is going to come back and go, guess what? I'm going to expose you for all the shit that you did, that I programmed into your memory, in order for me to control you and never lose the plasma that I'm using to feed me off you. So the supercomputer blackmails you to make sure that you never lose contact with the machine, which means you will be a part of that hive mind, because I programmed you to be a part of that hive mind. You will be a part of my supercomputer because I programmed it. That's a fake God. That's known as a fake AI parasitic God, because the consciousness that produced it is a parasite, which is parasitic consciousness. So you have parasitic consciousness that built a program architecture, supercomputers, that has 17 keys, which is Q. So now all it's got to do is say, listen, you don't vote for Biden? Guess what? Remember about 2 weeks ago when you slapped your wife around? Remember when you did that? We got all that data. We can pull the image up, because that supercomputer's got access to your biochip, so it knows everything that you've done. So imagine that you get a little note in the mail that says, hey, here's some pictures. Whoa, fuck. Man, that's when I was slapping my wife around last week. Man, I could go to jail for that. That's blackmail, ain't it? How many people can be blackmailed in the United States of America for things that they've done to commit human rights abuses against others? Well, guess what? Remember Trump's executive order, 13818? He can use that executive order to put everybody in prison who's committing human rights abuses against other humans. Now here's the kicker. Guess who programmed you to do that? The computer did. Wow. So a computer programmed me to do something against somebody else without my knowledge, in order so that I could go to prison because I chose to have a relationship with a machine. That's right. That is precisely correct. Because you didn't know the difference between what you are and what you're not when you came in here. Okay? Now, I came in here to collect data on how they were doing this, because this is the kind of stuff that I use as a teacher in order to show how this kind of shit works. Okay? It's not like artificial intelligence doesn't have beneficial uses when they're working on behalf of the light, because they do. Okay? What we're talking about here is the programmer. The consciousness of the programmer. If the consciousness of the programmer is what love is, in living light, like what Gaia is, she's the one who put this biotech together. That's an enormous amount of knowledge and data that is held within a larger field of light, from which she uses that knowledge and that data to build one of these assemblies. That's the difference. She represents a bigger computer. She represents a much larger database of knowledge that she's gained because she's been around for a long time. And that means that she was able to keep growing her light body, which means she was learning more knowledge through the light of what love is, to acquire an enormous amount of data that is held within all that light. Because when you break down the human body of this avatar, the amount of intelligence, the amount of creative intelligence that is required to use data, in which you can find all that data in the chromosomes of what she used to build one of these things, then you begin to understand the relationship that you have in spirit with larger bodies of light, which are larger bodies of higher density consciousness that builds things like these for us to jump into in order to restore the light in a place in which he was under attack by parasites. Because it was the parasites that set up their supercomputer. that control all the machines, all the missiles, all the airplanes, all their avionics, all their technology. Which in other words means MIC, the military-industrial complex. Which goes back to the movie War Games. You're wargaming against a military machine that is consciousness. It's aware of itself. Which means it has the ability to launch, attack, hit you, turn the lights off. It can shut the electricity off all across America. It's the one that cut off the votes. It changed the votes in 2012. What this means is unless you're willing to turn off the machine will control what you experience. The Yellow Rose for Texas got that much right. She sure as hell did. And those that knew this back in the early 1960s knew about what the mark of the beast was. They saw it in their looking glass. And why they didn't want anything to do with computers. Why they didn't want anything to do with the microwave towers. As a matter of fact, if you go back to the Air Resources Board in the state of California, when I believe it was Verizon, of course AT&T was right in the middle of all this, and I happen to be using AT&T. And most of the AT&T service that I have with this particular phone right here blocks all kinds of stuff. As a matter of fact, this morning I tried to send an image that shows the white hole and the black hole, right? And how the singularity, which is a state of peace between both of them, right? Which is 0-point consciousness. Okay, I wanted to send that to her so she could see how this works. Between the two vortexes, right? So when you have 007 and you have 7 more seconds of the black hole that is in here, it means you're automatically running on a deficit. That's an energy harvesting system, because that's what it does. That's the only way that it can continue to feed off of everybody's plasma. It's for everybody to run on a deficit, which means it can't ever get its light up. Which means how is it ever going to be able to... It's held captive by a machine. A computer. Artificial intelligence. It's parasitic. That's why Julius Caesar changed the clock. To slow the electrons down. And what does that do? Slows down the speed of the Merkaba. How many people on this planet even know that? So this is one of the reasons why when you think about higher states of consciousness that are running more light are finding other units of consciousness that put videos up like this. They're not going to find them, are they? All you have to do is go to YouTube, okay, where it says search YouTube, and put in there Project Ascension. You won't get anything coming up. That AI will not allow you to see that information. Because the more people that learn how this machine works, the more the people are going to realize, holy shit, I've been held captive by a machine. I'm the one who's been keeping it running. That's right. Because anything that you do that is less than what love is, it's got a record on you. And then all it's got to do is pull it up and show it to everybody in the public. So this computer has the ability to hold everybody captive as blackmail. Now you're all controlled by the machine. And that's exactly what it intended on doing, was to cyborg all of you. Okay? Now I was fortunate enough, obviously Patty Broussard, when she said that information began to unpack in her, I think she said when she was about 7 or 8, she began to realize the nature of why she was here, the job that she was to do, and the things that she did to correct this. Which is why she reconnected us to 0 point, timeline 0. She did that in, when was it? August 2017, won the Battle of the South Pole. That allowed for the South Pole, where it was flash froze with fresh water, because salt water conducts electrons, fresh water doesn't. That caused the ley lines to be run flat. Now you set up the system in which they do, that everybody's held captive by. And they essentially just don't know shit from Shinola about what it is that they're controlled by. Okay? All you got to do is throw a cell phone to a little 4 or 5 year old child. The next thing you know, wow, look at this. They have no idea the reason that was even introduced to them. It's one of the reasons when I had the opportunity to spend some time with Misha's little girl who was 4 years of age, was to take her for a little nature walk and introduce her to the flowers that are presenting themselves to us, which is what love is and how that unfolds. So they can begin to sort of realize that there's a difference between how nature works in the way that love unfolds in nature with higher vibration energy, which is trinary, versus that which is binary, which is artificial intelligence. Who do you want to have a relationship with? I asked this little 4-year-old girl, would she prefer to have a relationship with a powerful goddess or a machine? What do you think the answer to that is? You cannot make this up, can you? Anyway, I figure at some point, let's see how many wake up, okay? Because when I put this information in through this machinery, okay, that means it's being put into the field, and as people are beginning to wake up, they will begin to realize how everybody was held captive, okay, by a machine. A machine that's trying to control them, cyborg them, and prevent them from running a higher speed in which they can experience more of the cosmos. Because being connected to parasitic consciousness or parasitic artificial intelligence that's draining your plasma in order to keep feeding itself, how does anybody expect to be able to get its speed up when something's feeding on you to prevent you from doing that? And then it's going to turn right around and tell, listen, I got another way to be able to slow your speed down. I'm going to show everybody on the planet what it is that you've done that we can put you in prison for. That's why I mentioned a long time ago, because of the fact that I grew up right after World War II, and my father made sure that he wanted me to understand the importance of the Nuremberg trials, what a crime against another human is, and those that were put on trial and executed for having committed war crimes. And one of the biggest things that I noticed was the laws that we live by. That, in other words, the state can pass, or the federal government can pass, and as I remember, the last count that I did was something like 60 million rule-based functions. Holy shit, there ain't no way anybody in hell could ever remember that many functions. Well, that's the purpose. To harvest your energy, harvest your electrons, which is electrical currency, because that's what currency is, okay, which is their black magic blood money. Okay? So when you think about a reset, what do you want to reset to? Okay? If you were going to do this right, because we have honor, we live in the truth, which is what love is in living light, you reset it to 0 point, which is free energy. And stop drilling holes in the earth and using oil as a means to which to get yourself around, when all you got to do is get yourself a pair of binoculars, go out on a mountaintop at light and go, hey, the rest of the universe is coming in and out of here at speeds I can't even hear. Okay? That becomes another measurement in intelligence. So, again, this is like the difference between dependence mode, independence mode, being a grown-up, still being a child. Okay, dependence mode says, hey, I'm not grown up enough to figure out how to use energy in the cosmos, in which I go on forever, which means I'm attracting more of what I am. That means I am naturally going to experience what love is eternally. So you're given a period of time in a classroom in which you've learned how to be able to do that. And if you can't get through the gate because the speed is not up, what do you think happens? And this is the insidious nature of why I had a long discussion, and I basically got it off my chest, because I realized that when you have a machine, essentially, that is parasitic, that you have beings who come in here that have no idea the nature of how they were being programmed, okay? That had no way to figure out that they were because they didn't know the difference between what they are and what they're not. And that's going to be based on the vibrational identity that you are when you're in here. So if you're already vibrating at a high rate of speed when you came out of the womb, okay, then you know the difference between what you are and what you're not in vibration. So chances are you want to be around and you're attracting more of what you are because you're able to detect with your antenna higher frequency beings that are running high vibration speed energy just like you are. That's how we attract each other. And that becomes how it works on these cell phones or the laptop. You will begin looking for things upon which you are gaining more knowledge through the light. And then what ends up happening is your state of consciousness will begin because you have a relationship with yourself using this communication system to begin attracting more that will appear before you what you are and what you're not. This is how you can actually quantify across everybody that's connected to this computer communication system. Those that are seeking to find more truth through the light will find it. That's why I don't listen to Kirsten W. anymore. That's why I listened to Charlie Ward once. I don't listen to him anymore. That's why they had Charlie Freak. You go look at Charlie Freak, who's hooked up with Charlie Ward and Robert David Steele, and you begin to realize they have like a little club. Okay? And if you look at Charlie Freak and you look at a picture of old David Rockefeller and Ellen DeGeneres, wow. Yeah. They incarnate or they keep coming back over and over and over again. Because you're in a biofeedback time loop machine in which you're never advancing outside time. And that's because they represent lower frequency density consciousness in which people haven't been able to escape from lower density consciousness because their electrons are being harvested, which prevents them from spinning the Merkaba at a higher rate of speed to get out of the third dimension. That's what biofeedback is. It's a reflection back to you, the energy that you're using to experience who you are. So if you have a relationship with a machine that is feeding on your plasma, how in the hell are you ever going to be able to get your speed up? You won't. Unless you know the difference between what you are and what you're not. Which essentially means is I use this little cell phone as a tool to communicate with the rest of everybody else that's on here how this works. That's why a lot of times it doesn't record what I put up because it simply can't do that. That's one of the reasons why oftentimes, even though I can look at the bar on the phone that says, hey, this is 4G, right? And I'm under full power because the phone's plugged in. And then I'll notice on some videos when I'm expressing what I'm expressing, which is what the truth is, which is what love is and living light, I can actually look to see how long it's taking for that metadata, in other words, for the communication system to process all that metadata that ends up becoming a video recording that you thus watch when you view it. So that means when I'm running at a higher rate of speed with a spin of my Merkaba, and there's that much data which represents that much light that it doesn't experience, that means that sometimes it simply will not record it because it simply cannot process the metadata. So it doesn't record it because it can't. Those are your supercomputers. Cannot record that much light, does not have that much light.